Good afternoon. It's Yvette again from KMC University. I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to be with you today. And we are going to cover the keys to success for verification. We're going to go ahead and start our slides up here today and see what we can cover together. As I said, covering the key to success and verification. You may think, Yvette, why are you going to such an elementary level of the foundations in a chiropractic practice? Don't we all do verifications? Don't we all do them right? And commonly here at KMC University, we find out there's a lot of errors that are taking place later in different stages of the practice based on this one fundamental piece being left out or not being executed properly. So we're going to talk about some key features of verification, how to make sure this is going to work for you in your office, and we're just going to go ahead and get started right in. One of the things that I had spoken to you about was that we would be covering again a little bit of ABN when we got an update. Do want you to know that we did get some updates based on the topic I'm covering today. We won't have a whole lot of time to go into that, but you definitely could reach out to us if you have any questions. Also, talking about the importance of that new patient phone call, how it all really starts right there. Setting off a good tone with them not only sets it off with them, but it sets us off to success in the practice. Understanding the differences between what is verifying the insurance and just checking the eligibility. And there is a huge, huge difference. Also, just how do we go about doing proper verification, Yvette? I'm glad you asked. We'll cover that today. One of the things I'm so passionate about is medical review policy. Have them all in your back pocket, making sure that you're allowing those to guide the process and billing the insurance company for those services they deem medically necessary, and for coding appropriately according to their standards and requirements. And then just laying the foundation for success, having concise financial discussions, improved collections, and just improved patient adherence to treatment plans. As stated, I have previously talked to you guys back on my first webinar installment for ChiroSecure about the ABN form. At that point, what we knew was the deadline was just a few days ago on August 31st. And just as we all can half expect, Medicare said, well, let's give you a little bit longer. It's kind of when we look back at COVID over the last several months and all the impact that it's made on our lives, we're all kind of scratching our head. What's the positive that came out of that? But in that, we find a little bit of reprieve in some of these new deadlines that were just imposed. And as you see here on the screen, January 1st, 2021 is now that new deadline for the ABN form. I am glad that they're giving us this extra time because KMC University, as you know, reached out to ask them several questions about the ABN form instructions that just were not clear enough for us to actually coach our clients or to give guidance. Everyone needs to know exactly how to do that ABN form because it's so highly scrutinized. A lot of things, if you've not investigated into it, are different with the way that you process the QMB. Remember, we talked about a QMB being that qualified Medicare beneficiary who both has, and I'm sorry for my video going up, but I'll continue to speak to you. There we go. Uh, that we talked about that QMB patient that actually we can't treat just like any Medicare patient in our office. So we asked those questions. We said, you weren't clear Medicare, and they came back with those answers. Again, what we're covering today is going to be more about verification. Should you have any questions and wonder, oh Lord, what did she just talk about? I'll give you a phone number at the end that you can reach out to should you have any questions. So like I said, the ABN jury is in. Medicare came in and ruled and said, hey, we've got some answers. We actually, I felt like we almost stumped them because they go, oh, give us some more time. We have to talk to our subject matter experts upon this. And they came back and they answered concisely. And we've actually put one more question out there to them. So the jury's back out again. But you may remember my presentation back two presentations ago that actually had the empty jury box. I thought, hey, they've come in great. Let's go ahead and put them in. So as we're going to break through into these foundational pieces for your practice, we want to talk about the verification process. But before we even start to verify insurance for a patient, we better know because they're going to ask on that first phone call, are you in network with my insurance? I don't know. And maybe you don't. I find it all the time. One of my questions I ask when I talk to clients here, one of the first ones are, who are you in network with? We need to know who they're in network with. Should we need to assist them further on a topic? And inevitably, I would say it is not 50-50 that people know and people don't know. It's probably more like 70-30, 30 being people know who they're in network with and 70% not knowing. Those I really don't know. They've had no system in place. Maybe it fell apart. They don't have a contract. They have nothing showing exactly who they're in network with. How can you answer a question? How can you know how to bill? How can you know what to charge if you don't know who you're in network with? As you see here on the screen, when you're in network, you're going to get a little bit less money than when you're out. That's because when you're in network with a commercial payer, you're dealing with a contracted rate. When you're with Medicare, you're dealing with a regulated rate. Some others may fall under that regulated rate. However, when you have an out-of-network patient, they're as good as cash to you. You're not accepting assignment. You're not signed up for contractual obligations. That's why you see more money coming out. They're demonstrating more money coming out of the patient's pocket, but we can realize that that is actually more money that can be coming into our practice. So important to have it documented exactly who you're in network with. Have a tool, something like what we have here, where you're filling out that information that is just a quick reference for staff members. Maybe you have a new person at the front desk and she had to answer the phone in a pinch, and the other person on the phone wants to know if you're in network. When you hem haw or pause or hesitate in answering, you cause a question in their mind that they're like, I don't even know that I can go here, because if they don't know who they're in network with, how are they going to know what I'm doing there? You want to set the tone from the very first call. So you have to lay a foundation under what you're doing before they call. If you build it, think back to the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. Build a good foundation, build a good inviting environment for your patients to call in. Have your staff knowing. Everybody wants to know. No one wants a question to come across and say, do you do this or not? And they're sitting there kind of dumbfounded. They don't want to fail. Set your office and your patients up for success. Know who you're in network with, know who you're not, so you know the next step. So step one is knowing your networks. Just know who it is, know who it's not. Always be careful though. Someone's hiding and lurking behind some door back there, and it's called a silent PPO. You may not realize it, but this is who's back here doing the pricing. They're hooked up over here, looped in a special way, and you're like, whoa, how did that even happen? You've got to know who these silent PPOs are. They come riding in on the coattail of someone else. They're not necessarily wide open and saying, hey, I'm this person. They're silent. They're sitting in the background. They're changing the pricing. They're making it look different. You're just scratching your head of who got involved here. It's your silent PPO. You also, when you are verifying who you're in network with and listing out those contracts, organizing your office, you need to think about these. I commonly instruct clients here to think about when you call credentialing to verify, when you're on this side, you've been seeing patients for a while and you just don't know, call credentialing departments. What legs of your business am I in network with? What portions of Aetna? What portions of Blue Cross Blue Shield? What portions of Cigna am I in with? Some may not be in with ASH. Some may be in with ASH. Some may not be in with Optum. Some may be out of Optum. These are the questions you need to know the answers to, and you need to know who's behind it, maybe being the fourth party in driving that pricing and also negotiating things and processing claims on your behalf and on the patient's behalf. So now that we've set this stage, we've said, okay, this is who we're in network with, this is who we're not in network with, we're ready for that patient to give us a call. Patient calls our office, and we want to get enough foundational information that not only is what we put into the software, but from the very first call, you can actually start the wheels spinning for your insurance department, for the doctor, for everyone involved. So just take a look at this form sitting there. One, who can we thank for referring you? Great. What type of problem are you having? Now, do you think this was for your front desk staff to sit there and figure out, okay, this is what we're dealing with. Okay, they've got sciatica, it sounds like. No, this can be something that the doctor could look at ahead of time and have just a good idea of Did they have treatment before? Have they tried other interventions? Have they been seen by another chiropractor? Are they under any other type of care? So this form isn't only good for just filling out your software, but it's good even from a clinical standpoint. Asking these key questions, everything in here just kind of makes you stop and pause. Well, did I tell them when their appointment time was? And then down at the bottom of this, you'll actually see something that's not on this screen here. But did I tell them how to get to the office? Did I tell them where to get the new patient paperwork so they're not sitting here and I'm having to wait and pause the doctor? If their appointment's at 11 and they show up at 10:55, they're not going to get it done. So we want to be proactive to set the stage for just good business practices. As I've listened back to some of these ChiroSecure webinars and just looking over the topics that are discussed, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this is a great idea for practices. Wow, this is an excellent topic. But we've got to assimilate it in and bring it in an organized fashion. And we have to start at the foundation. That's letter S of A through Z. So we start here with bringing that patient in, making sure who we're in network with, and then as you're going to see here in a moment, verifying actually what is covered, what is not covered, and other limitations that may be in the policy for that patient. So even on that first phone call, you're gathering facts. You can see here that we give you space that lists out exactly who the insurance company is, getting that necessary information, giving you key pieces all along the way that you can gather, because heaven forbid you try to call the payer and you don't have their date of birth, you don't have the subscriber's date of birth, you're missing this or you're missing that. These type of things, laying a strong foundation, allow you to start building pieces on top of it. Instead of building on sand, you're actually building on a very strong foundation, and that's exactly what we want for the entire practice moving forward with this patient and for that patient's experience with our clinic. So from there, we go to what I call 2.5. Let's talk about those differences between eligibility and verification. Eligibility is typically taking place maybe as a component of your software, maybe through a portal that you're checking. It's just some way that you're going online to avoid that long 30-minute, 50-minute phone call. Back when I was in the practice in 2015, I thought, you know, if doc ever asks me what in the world I'm doing all day as a CA, I'm going to have it recorded. I spent 50 minutes on the phone waiting for them to answer. I learned the art of multitasking and speakerphone until they came on so I could get things done, because yes, it will take you a long time, but have things you're working on. But I will tell you, when I did an on-site visit back in March in Boston, in the Boston area, they were just going on the eligibility portals, on Blue Cross and Blue Shield portal, on Aetna portal. They were just going to that level when they were doing verifications. So I told the insurance girl, I said, go in there and you do it on a portal, and I'm going to stay in here in your office and I'm going to do it by phone. Now, obviously I trained her later. And when we came back, it said, come back in the middle when you're done. And we took her little verification sheet, what she got from the payer. We took what I got from the phone call. She goes, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. I've got to incorporate that. I said, exactly. Here I reside in the state of West Virginia. So here in West Virginia, it was really odd what we had here as a West Virginia Blue Cross and Blue Shield plan. So they had, I believe it was however many services they were allowed for spinal CMT. Let's say there really wasn't a limit, or there was 30. 30 was very common here, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. But you're dealing with 30 visits. The first 8, we called them free because you had to go get authorization to move forward. But it was subject to the deductible, then an 80-20 split for the first 20 treatments, not days of service, then 50-50 thereafter. And then the therapies were subject to the same deductible and the same coinsurance, but it had a different limit. Well, the exam had a $40 copay and the x-rays were done somewhere different than that. And you had it like, who's going to track? Visit 1 was 5, visit 2 was 3 over at this other office. When we looked in the portal, there was no way to gather all that. Commonly, if you looked in the portal, you felt like they had a $40 copay for their visit. So you tell the patient, they come in, let's say they're in deductible period. Mrs. Smith, you owe us $40 for today. Next visit, because you've not gotten your EOB back yet. Mrs. Smith, that'll be another $40 for today. Mrs. Smith, that's another $40 for the day. And before you know it, she's paid you $160. She's paid you $200. She's paid you however much in her $40 copay, only to figure out later that she owed you $1,500 now. Now you're shocking her with that. She was getting better until you told that. Now she's going to have an emotional response, go back and subluxate. Now we got a whole nother problem. But see how just having that clear communication, a bad taste in their mouth, you don't want that. And there's just information you cannot get on a portal that you must obtain in that phone call. Very specific questions that you can ask. Can I delegate a service? Detailed information. What is allowed per this plan? Sometimes when we get on a portal, we get into generalized things, generalized for just this company in general. We got to break it down to a cellular level. What can we learn? Delegation. We get more information on medical necessity. We can ask them, where can I find your medical review policies, which we'll cover in a moment. What's your limits? What's your exclusions? Patient financial responsibility. And remember those accumulations? After 8, I had to ask for more. 21st services were 80-20, then we went to 50-50. I was not able to find that particular information on a portal. The portal was great, but it was not that robust. So we want to make sure that we're actually verifying the benefits, because we know it's not getting any easier. It remains to just be complex and continues to be complex. Will continue to grow in that arena, because as one company sees this company getting by with something, they will start that, and we'll see this trickle effect, and we're noticing it more and more. This has this benefit and that has that benefit. And that again just kind of spells out those differences between the online, the IVR, and the phone. If you really want your best results, putting your practice off to having the best collections, having your patients with the best financial experience in your practice, verification is going to be the way to go. You can find out information oftentimes about if there's a secondary, who's primary. Sometimes they'll fight online, sometimes they'll fight on the phone, but there's just things I have found through the years, and I have been in this profession for a long time and been in medical profession for longer than I care to admit. But I'm telling you, there are things that I have taken for granted and thought that I could get off a portal and misquoted to a patient, and had a very dissatisfied patient years ago. Patients, I can say, because I had to learn my lesson. And they would want to stop practice. They would want to stop coming in. They would want to go someplace else because they just felt their finances were not being handled appropriately. Make sure you're getting the correct information from the beginning, and make sure you're conveying the most accurate. Let it be said of you when they sit down in your office, go over their financial report of finding, no one's ever explained it to me like this before. I've never understood my insurance until today. Towards my latter years in practice, when I learned better, those were common things that I heard as people were exiting my office. They left Doc confident that he could take care of the problem. They left me confident that we had their insurance and their finances in check. And they walked into the adjustment bay confident they were in the right place. We talked previously, I believe it was back on the very first installment, about Medicare. We talked about some QMB, which is that qualified Medicare beneficiary who is dually eligible for Medicare and Medicaid. We feel that some of the best places to go for that particular information, obviously calling Medicare, but it's also in HETS, the HIPAA Eligibility Transaction System. Making your way there, they're making a concentrated effort to include that information regarding the Part B deductibles, the accumulators, and the QMB status that you've got to be so careful of, especially with that new ABN form, and especially in charging Medicare patients that are dually eligible for spinal CMT services. I was so shocked to find through some of the questions we asked Medicare that on that ABN form where you're shifting liability over to the patient for maintenance CMT services, that with the QMB patient, you can't charge them when they sign it. I was like, wait a minute, it's statutorily excluded. No, you have to wait for it to go through Medicaid and then wait on what Medicaid tells you to do and then collect it. If you recall, we talked about having to do limited enrollment. So many hoops you have to jump through. Like I said, I can't go into depth on that because time won't permit today, but know that the answers, some of them shocked us and some of them were like, that doesn't make sense, but you said it, your subject matter said it, and that's what we have to go with. We know that we can improve efficiency. So something that we have here are several different, like you see here in front of you, several different templates for when you're verifying benefits. So we don't need to ask Medicare, do you cover therapies unless you're a multidisciplinary office? Do you cover exams or x-rays? We don't need that. So maybe your Medicare verification form is only that is relative to Medicare. What if you had a verification form? Here, Federal Blue Cross and Blue Shield is very prevalent. There is standard and there is basic. I knew the parameters of standard and basic. So what if, to save myself time, that I had it preloaded, that I said, this is my Federal Blue Cross and Blue Shield verification form, basic. And it has this many allowances for CMT services, this many allowances for PT, the copay is this, for this, the copay is that, here's the limit, here's the exclusions, here's this, and it's already preset. I just pull it out of the file or print it off when I'm ready to go do this verification. And then at that point, when you know those products so well, you're just asking for accumulations, effective dates, and those type of information. You'll learn that by group numbers or by policies that you can set up those templates to where they are well already filled out for you. You've got the insurance company, the phone number, you've got, you know, where to send the claim, the payer ID, and some of those parameters I just talked about with deductibles and copays and things like that, that can already be predetermined for you ahead of time. Just setting yourself up, again, not building on sand, but adding another layer to your foundation. And then we start to dig a little deeper, step 4. So 2.5 was eligibility. Go ahead, do your eligibility just to make sure they're active. We want to know they're active. But step 3 was really verification. But step 4 is digging deeper. We can't stop there. Commonly, we don't think we have the time to do one more thing. So maybe this is another one of those foundation pieces you needed. You got to think of it this way. I now know who I'm in network with. The patient's called me, I'm in network or I'm not. I'm verifying their insurance, but now when I submit it, I have to obey the rule. Or maybe this is really step foundation 0.5, and I am in network and I know what they allow and what they don't allow, what they exclude, what limits they have. They only allow me to do this for this. They don't allow me to do that for that. Knowing the medical review policies, some are called summary plan descriptions, by payers is a catalyst. I commonly get a shock and awe from our clients when I give them the Aetna clinical policy bulletin, otherwise known as a medical review policy. Many practitioners do not know all of the limits and all of the stipulations within that policy for chiropractic alone. We're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive on that. But when we get into these portals, we're actually able to then not to check eligibility. Remember, that was 2.5. That wasn't even a full step forward. But to now figure out for this particular plan, not just the payer, but this plan, what am I working with here? What ingredients are going into my cake? What spice is this? What flavor is this? I need to know before I move forward. Here in West Virginia, we have the public employees insurance. And with PEIA, they had the option at that time with going with HealthSmart and the health plan of the Upper Ohio Valley. Now this is PEIA, same teacher that we have here. And as we go through, we think, well, they're going to be the same. It's just a different administrator. Wrong answer. Over here with HealthSmart, they had specific modifiers they required. AT modifier, kind of like Medicare, but they didn't have like an ABN sensitive one. So when you wanted to demonstrate it wasn't medically necessary, you took the AT off. The 98943 had to have an AT, but let's go over here to the health plan of the Upper Ohio Valley, and this one didn't even cover extremities. So how much did I need to know this information? So I tell the patient, well, it's going to be this per visit, and it comes back that they wouldn't cover the 98943. Now I'm stuck. I have to write it off. Doc spend is 5 minutes adjusting extremities that were medically necessary and reporting them. When we have advanced knowledge in the practice, we can then actually structure that, have the patient sign a form ahead of time with acknowledgement that they're going to be financially responsible, either payer driven or office generic form, whichever is required. And knowing their rules, can I even do that? That way, you're not only helping the patient to understand their finances, when you've told them what they're responsible for, it's going to mirror exactly what they see. And the practice isn't losing out on money. So you've got to build the foundation again, not only for the patient's experience, but for your practice, for your income, for your patient visits. You need this information for just great foundations that will carry you from their starting day in practice all the way through the day you retire and beyond. So how to look up a medical review policy. I could switch screens and take you there. I will tell you, I could not even begin to count the number of medical review policies I have here at KMC University, and I don't bill any insurance now. I may help somebody, but we're commonly asked questions and we refer them back to their medical policy. Commonly, we'll get in a Zoom meeting like we're in today and say, hey, here's how you go find it. Let's go over here together and let's look at this and learn how to grab a medical review policy. We may ask on the call when we're verifying benefits, how do I get the medical review policy? Look on their website. I don't get challenged very often when I go to find one. Occasionally when I do, we'll get on the phone and we'll ask where it's at and ask exactly what pertains to this plan within this payer. Case in point, out my back door in that direction, if I looked out there, I could see his office right now. Never worked there. I don't know the inner workings of that office. But there was a plan inside of Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So we have Blue Cross and Blue Shield covering, and it was a plan over here to the side. They may have allowed him to actually, um, delegate some services out to staff and then bill under his MPI. This little payer didn't, this little plan didn't inside. And you talk about a major upheaval in that office, recoupments, all kinds of things happen, investigations and things like that. Talk about getting your attention. It got everyone's attention that wasn't even involved there to scrutinize your own practice and make sure you're not falling into that same hole. So quickly, let's look at Aetna. When we look at Aetna, look at this. They have to have a neuromuscular skeletal condition. So if you're getting denials from Aetna and all you're listing is pain, you might want to think about that. That could be part of your problem because they're telling you here. You've got to have documented improvement within 2 weeks. If there's no documented improvement within 2 weeks, then future care is not medically necessary unless you change the course of treatment. Reevaluate them at the 30-day point. If they've still not made any improvement after you've changed the plan and the course of treatment, it's not medically necessary. Everybody hold your breath. Think of the techniques that you use in your office because I may be about to shock you half to death. This is their list of experimental and investigational services. Find yourself on there. Practice I was last with Atlas orthogonal, Corin technique, sacro-occipital. We used a pro adjuster. We used a Cox decompression table. We used Webster. Look at this. This is what they consider. So if you're billing to Aetna today and these are your techniques, think again, go pull their policy. They lay it out there. They're not sending these to you with your contract. You need to go get them. Believe me, they change them. They review them frequently, and you need to be reviewing them on a regular basis. Just know if they considered experimental and investigational, you've got to get the proper forms filled out ahead of time. One, do they allow you to shift responsibility to the patient by having them either sign their own form? What frequency does that have to be signed? And do they also require you to have them sign an informed consent, or can they use a generic form? These are the things you have to know to properly bill. So you're thinking, Yvette, why do we talk about this? Think about this from a risk level. You're billing for the wrong services. That means you're coding improperly, you're charging improperly. It turns into a massive nightmare. So this foundational piece of verification is every bit right down the line of your malpractice, your state board, everything else. When you think about these things that may be deemed investigational and experimental, it's certain things that we do there. They've just said, well, we can't prove that this is going to be of therapeutic benefit. I'm not saying it don't work. I'm just saying we don't have enough here to support it. And they have plenty, trust me. Aetna will tell you why they made their decision. But for those things where they're proven to be investigational or experimental, a lot of times you have to have a written form the patient signed in your office regarding those services, then something else from the payer, setting the foundation quickly. Understand, shifting the gear a little bit from that, but understand when you're having these conversations with your patients, they're not the ones to decide if it's covered or not. They're not the ones to ask you to code it a different way or not. And they're not the ones to decide if it's medically necessary or clinically appropriate. That is a clinical decision that only you can make. It's not a money decision. It's not a way to get it to fit into a benefit. And remember, I told you I was coming back to 30 visits. When they say 30 visits, it doesn't mean you get to use them all. When I ask our clients coming in, do you commonly, if someone has 20 or 30 visits, do you find yourself exhausting those benefits before you take them to cash? Yes. Next question. Do you always use the AT modifier for spinal CMT services? They're connected. You cannot always exhaust it because it's there. Just because it's there, you don't use it. You've got to save them some water for later in that desert, or you've got to save them a way out when they have something happen in the future. Just because it's there doesn't mean you exhaust it. That's where you look back at their medical review policies, look at your contract, how things have to be medically necessary, and then also look at their documentation requirements. Set yourself up for success by taking all of these ingredients you've gathered so far. We know it's Medicare with a supplement. Maybe your verification sheet matches this. Maybe it says the same thing. I don't know. Set it up in your software for success. Make sure you've got it listed out there. The allowable fees. Use your software to the fullest extent of its capability. Make sure everything matches. So if it says their middle initial, have their middle initial. If it's got their date of birth, you'll have to have those things that your claim won't be processed. But think about these things that have got to be spot on that you've got to have. Don't set yourself up to be reactive. Be proactive in the beginning so that you can spend less time later. Setting these things up can also give your staff that's untrained these pieces to where you can see here. Let's say this is a Medicare patient. That extremity CMT, this patient has a supplement. I don't want that going over to them. I'm not submitting it, so I'm going to have them do cash. But the way I have my software, I couldn't select it if I wanted to. Set your staff up for success. And so with all of these ingredients put together, and we're coming quickly to a close here in just a moment, you've got clear communication, you've got clean ledgers, you've got concise collections, and your AR is beautiful. Your patients are so happy. The benefits are compliant patients, confident patients, continuous collections. They want to know that you know what you're talking about. Give them something to talk about, and don't give them something bad. Let's give them something to talk about, something great, because I want to tell you something. Recently, I went to an office here in my area, and I decided I needed to get under some chiropractic care, and I couldn't always drive 45 minutes to my chiropractor that was up the road a little bit. I thought, well, I'll just go here local. I know they're great. I've heard great things about them. And you know what? They didn't verify my benefit right. Hundreds of dollars came out of my pocket, and it shouldn't have. And I kept saying, listen, and they knew I do my stuff. I'm like, listen, my deductible's met. It is a family deductible, and hundreds of dollars went out of my pocket. And I will be honest with you, I stopped care. After all of my claims processed, I stopped care before all my claims processed. And I stayed on top of my refund, which they gave me. Everything went well afterward. But not having this good financial thing was a bad taste in my mouth. So it's not only just me, because I know it. Your patients know it. Trust me. So have your treatment plan, go to your verifications, your medical review, and you're off the charts in collections, off the charts with your patient satisfaction. And just keep in mind that you always want to stay on top of these processes. Check your medical review policies frequently, verify religiously, let eligibility just be a half step in the right direction, because it's definitely not a full step. And then set your patients off on a great financial foot. I'm telling you, doc can close them clinically, you close them financially. Happy patient walks over into adjustment bay, happy patient stays adjusted, happy patient's money stays coming in, bills are paid. You're doing well, they're doing well, success stories. If you're ever interested in where we are, as you see between now and the end of the year, COVID's not stopping us. Some of them are online, but we're going to be a little bit of everywhere. So anything that you see that we're out there in your neck of the woods, definitely come up and say hi. And we would love to see you there. Like I said, I couldn't go over all the information we got from Medicare. You may have questions from today. You're more than welcome to reach out to us at any time, info@kmcuniversity.com. Our phone number is right there, 855-832-6562. Just push option 1. They'll get you connected with somebody that can help you. And keep in mind that next week, you're going to have a presenter. Kim Clapp will be presenting for you. So stay tuned. She'll be here. And a great big thank you out to ChiroSecure for hosting me again today. I appreciate the time you spent with me. Hope this has been helpful. Build a strong foundation. Your patients need it. And more than your patients need it, your practice needs it. Just watch what it turns around in your practice by just getting the foundation correct. Have a great day. Good to see you again.